Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to Sprocket, which is a game where you get to build tanks in all sorts of wonderful weird shapes and sizes. It's a labour of love being made by a guy called Hamish Dunn, who has built the whole thing on his own. Now, a special shout out to my buddy Ash, who was kind enough to provide me with a key for this game, and oh boy am I glad that he did, because I've been having a lot of fun with it. Now, if you're the kind of person who enjoys games like Kerbal Space Program or Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, then you're probably really going to like this game as well. The main feature is the ability for the player to completely build their own tank, which can then actually be used in combat in one of several different scenarios that's currently available in the game. You can also simply drive them around the testing areas as well. Now, Sprocket has several pre-built tanks that you can use and drive around and fight in, but the main feature of the game is of course the tank designer itself, and I wanted to play around with that and build one of my favourite military vehicles, which is the Russian KV-2. So Sprocket has a system that allows you to change the design of the hull and the turret of your tank. It's pretty flexible, allowing you to adjust the height, width, certain angles and offsets, and generally shape the tank to your liking. Now, it does have some limitations, however. Right now you can't apply curved edges, for example, so designing things like the back part of the turret of a Tiger 1 or the turret of a T-34 might be a bit difficult. It is still doable to a degree, you're just going to have like hard edges and not the curves that you would normally see in those models. Hopefully curved edges are something that gets added in the future, because that would really add to the flexibility of the design system. Thankfully, curves are something that is pretty lacking in a KV-2. It is essentially just a giant fridge, so replicating that in this game should be pretty easy. Now, the whole process of designing the tank, start to finish, in Sprocket is straightforward, albeit there was quite a lot of time spent glancing at my second monitor to get the specifications, for the hull dimensions, weights, and other important stats about this KV-2 so that I can make my design somewhat realistic. Now, that's not to say it wasn't a complex process, even though I found it quite easy. Sprocket lets you dive right into the nitty-gritty details of tank design. You can completely adjust things like the design of your engine, powertrain, suspension, tracks, armament. You can have a 4-cylinder engine, you can have a 24-cylinder engine, you can select the displacement of each cylinder, you can set things like RPMs, you can adjust how many gears you have in your transmission, the gear ratios, you can adjust your track width, strengths, idlers, sprockets, the layout of the road wheels as well. I think you could also change the material of the road wheel, thinking back on it, but it's just a huge array of changes you can make, and that goes out to the guns as well, so you can choose from a variety of different mantlets, and then you can adjust the barrel and the muzzle as well, so you can adjust the barrel thickness, length, the caliber, of course. Now, all of these things though affect the weight and the structure of the tank, and there are constraints and limits that you'll need to be aware of. So for example, if you make a really big heavy gun, your tank might not have motors sufficiently powerful enough in the turret to move it. Now, that was something I actually encountered when I made an attempt at creating a Tiger 1 tank. There was actually nothing powerful enough to drive the movement of the gun, because I made the gun on a 1-to-1 scale. Now, the strongest pre-built tank you can use in the game right now is the Panther, and I imagine that is probably on the upper end of what can be built in the game right now, so anything kind of stronger and heavier than a Panther might be a little bit difficult, but I'm sure people are going to find ways of doing it. Now, I imagine we'll see some stronger and heavier stuff and parts added to the game in the future, especially as I'd like to try building something like an IS-2 or even a King Tiger or something like a Ferdinand, those big, heavy beasts of burden that we started seeing in the mid to late war period in the Second World War. Those sort of tanks really interest me. So hopefully Sprocket gets some additions to it which lets us build those sort of big toys. But at the moment, you know, you can still build a lot of things. You can build stuff, you know, rudimentary things like, you know, early World War I tanks. You can build interwar stuff. You can build early World War II stuff. There's quite a few of those pre-built designs will be fairly recognizable. You can even build some like late war medium tanks, things that aren't as heavy, like a Centurion, for example. Right now the game is pretty bare bones, and I'm not surprised considering it's just Hamish working on it, which is very impressive. As somebody who's developing their own game privately, I'm thoroughly impressed with what he's been able to achieve in a relatively short time frame. You know, this isn't just you know, somebody making just you know, like not a simple game, but you know, this kind of stuff is difficult to code and program. Like you're talking about things like armor thickness, adjustables. Like, this is a labor of love, and the fact that so much of this has been made and is now essentially in working order is very impressive. Now, of course, there are bugs and things like that, and you know, things do need adjusting in the game, which is why it's in early access, and I have no doubts that we're going to be seeing improvements in this game in the future. It's definitely a game that I'm going to be playing around with some more, so you might see a couple of more videos of me building random monstrosities over the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on its developments, because this thing has a lot of potential, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to building many more tanks in the future with it. So if building weird things and blowing stuff up is your thing, have a look at Sprocket and check it out. It's on the Steam store at the moment, early access. You might have a bit of fun with it.